What do department stores, mannequins, and talking mice have in common? They are all an integral part of my childhood. Today's special is nostalgia. Welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt and I have 2 degrees, and today we are back in my favorite city, Toronto, Ontario, for another walk down memory lane. Today is an extra exciting day. It's kind of a spontaneous video because, to be totally honest, I'm only here because I'm seeing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child for a second time before they close, like, forever in Canada. But before that, I thought, you know what? I want to have another Toronto adventure, and as it so happens, there is an exhibit, a free exhibit, at a museum I've never been to called the Myseum of Toronto, I believe. Anyway, it's an exhibit that is dedicated to the incredible TV that came out of Canada, specifically Toronto, for like 40 years. We're talking about shows like Mr. Dressup, like Polka Dot Door, but the one that holds the nearest and dearest place in my heart, and possibly yours as well, would be today's special. Today's special! Now, if you're a millennial like myself, or even a Gen Xer, actually the show is probably more geared towards Gen Xers, you're no doubt familiar with today's special. Maybe you didn't watch it in your childhood, but you were probably like aware of it. So it's a show that aired on TVO, TV Ontario, from like 1981, I think, through to 1987. But it wasn't just a show that was exclusively aired in Canada, because it was so good that it was picked up and aired in the States by Nickelodeon. I think it was also aired overseas, like Australia, a bunch of other places. So even though it is such a quintessentially Canadian show for so many reasons that I'll get into probably throughout the day, throughout this adventure that we're going on together, it was an integral part of so many people's childhoods. I guess what I'm saying is I hope more than just Canadians watch this episode. Oh. It's the Shangri-La Hotel.
Tara-boom, tara. It's the Circus Shangri-La.
I wonder if they have a circus in this hotel. So for the poor unfortunate souls who might not know what today's special is, which I guess would be Gen Zers, Gen Zers, because yeah, millennials watched it, baby boomers probably watched it with their kids. Yeah, so it's the youngins, So for the kids out there, today's special was this wonderful half-hour series. It was kind of a musical, it was kind of comedy, it was kind of fantasy, it was all of the above rolled into one. It was also kind of like that 80s movie Mannequin with Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall, if you ever saw that, but like significantly less horny.
No, I would never bother you when you're getting a piece of wood.
And you know, I said that to be funny, but it is actually a pretty apt description, because in Mannequin, Andrew McCarthy, he's like an artistic soul. He creates this mannequin, she comes to life. It's very Pygmalion, but it's not too dissimilar in today's special, because in today's special, 2 of the main 4 characters are kind of counterparts to that. So you have Jodie, who is the window dresser in this big department store. She has a mannequin friend named Jeff. Jeff is a mannequin who has a magical hat. Ooh, it's cooler than this hat. And when Jeff wears the hat and someone says the words Hocus, Pocus, Alamagocus, then he comes to life.
You see, he's only real when you put on the magic hat and say the magic words, Hocus, Pocus, Alamagocus.
But the caveat is, he can really kind of only come to life at night when the department store is empty, and if he ever leaves the walls of the department store, he becomes a mannequin again, and I think it might be forever. Like, there's this whole really sort of dark undertone of mortality when it comes to Jeff, which I love. So the series is really about Jeff just like learning about life and what different things are, kind of being like the voice of the child. And then he's learning about everything with the help of Jodie, as well as 2 other main characters, which are Muffy the Mouse and Sam the Night Watchman. Now, both Muffy and Sam were played by puppets, but the way that they interacted and flowed with the human actors, it was so seamless. I mean, I didn't question it as a kid. I was just like, the characters are the characters. But rewatching a few episodes just in the past few days, I am astonished at the puppetry. And I mean, I'm not a puppeteer whatsoever, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but they just move and interact with the humans like they're actual humans, especially Sam. So good. Now, without a doubt, one of the highlights of the show was Jeff the Mannequin, as played by Jeff Hyslop. I think it's Hyslop, Hyslop, let's say Hyslop. So an absolute Canadian icon. Singer, dancer, actor, director, choreographer. He was actually the choreographer for today's special. And I mean, today's special is probably what he's best known for, but he was also one of the more prominent actors to play the Phantom in the Canadian production of Phantom of the Opera. And really, today's special was just like a vehicle to watch him sing and dance his heart out and he was incredible. Jeff was just one of two of the non-puppet main characters. The other one, of course, was Jodie, as played by Noreen Virgin. Now, much like Jeff Hyslop, Noreen Virgin is also a Canadian icon and a Canadian treasure, but in a totally different way. So after today's special, she continued acting and she continued singing, but then she also branched off into journalism, and since then, she has had such an incredible career. She's done a lot of work with Black history, specifically with Historica Canada, to like write articles and do pieces on notable Black figures in Canadian as well as American history. She also ran, I believe, for MP. She ran for some kind of political position in Hamilton, Stony Creek, in that area. I love her. Yeah, you know what, guys? Full disclosure, when people do these types of videos, when they're like, oh, look at me, I'm casually walking and talking my way to such and such a special place, they make it look so effortless. Like, a lot of what I've been doing is staged. I could have been at the museum probably 20 minutes ago, but like that's just a little behind the scenes fact for you. So I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm just gonna walk to the museum. Oh look, it's Hooters. Wouldn't it be hilarious if I went to Hooters by myself wearing my today's special shirt? And here we are. So we're at 401 Richmond Street. There are actually a bunch of different units here, so I'm pretty sure where we're going is like just about one of them, but we'll find out together. So we have this amazing timeline here that's telling us not just about Canadian television history, but just how it coincides with Toronto history and history in general, which is fascinating. And then over here, we also have these fun interactive elements like Let's Do It, share with Howdy Doody. And in this book, we could talk about the best ways to make new friends. Let's see what we got. A great way to make a new friend is to take a class or join a club. I mean, this is pretty much it. Ask if you want to be friends. Then if they say yes, ask what their name is. It's such a humbling moment when you look at a display of vintage TVs and find the one that you grew up with in a display. So evidently, this is Elmer the Elephant. I don't know if he's any relation to Elmer's glue, but seemingly he's the safety elephant.
Remember all my 6 safety rules.
According to this, if your school had a perfect safety record, you would get to fly this flag. But then if a kid gets into an accident, they revoke the Elmer the Elephant flag. Just imagine being the kid who loses your school the Elmer the Elephant flag. Okay, so it's time to play the Polka Dot Door guessing game. It takes 2 or more, but there's only me, so we'll make it work. One person reaches into the bag, the polka dot bag, tries to describe what's inside. Here we go. Here's a dinosaur. And, oh, yes. Go me. Evidently, I can make a puppet. So I'm obviously going to make a puppet. One thing I never realized as a kid was that more often than not, the person who built the puppet was also the person performing the puppet, and there is such a rich history of puppetry in Canadian children's television, dating as far back as 1958 when CBC began producing The Friendly Giant, featuring Jerome the Giraffe and Rusty the Rooster, who were performed by Rod Coneybeare. 2 other iconic Canadian puppets were Casey and Finnegan from Mr. Dressup, who's easiest to describe as the Canadian Mr. Rogers. Casey and Finnegan were built and performed by Judith Lawrence, who was given free rein by CBC to create her own characters for the show. Now, one thing I just learned that I loved is that she took it upon herself to make Casey a gender-neutral character. She wanted Casey to be someone that all kids could relate to, and so she picked a name and created a character that wasn't tied down to being a boy or a girl. Casey was just Casey. Another iconic Canadian puppeteer is Noreen Young. In 1995, she was awarded the Order of Canada for having effectively used puppetry to educate children on such critical issues as safety, nutrition, environmental awareness, and addictions. Now, Noreen Young has built hundreds of puppets in her career, from beloved children's TV characters to caricature puppets of real people, but she's probably best known as the creator of Under the Umbrella Tree. In addition to creating the show, she also designed and built the three main characters, Jacob, Iggy, and Gloria, and she also performed as Gloria. A career where you can be crafty and perform? That's my dream job. I missed my calling. Then again, this is the puppet I created. Okay, with my puppet built, let's see what we came here for. Here we go. We're looking at 3 original puppets from today's special: Muffy the Mouse, Sam Crenshaw, and Mrs. Pennypacker. Now, Muffy the Mouse and Sam were both built by the legend herself, Noreen Young, and with that in mind, I can absolutely see a resemblance between Muffy and the Under the Umbrella Tree cast. Like, I feel like Muffy and Gloria the Gopher would be best friends forever. One thing that really stands out to me with the Sam puppet is the eyes. Like, I never realized that he did not have pupils. But when you look at some of Noreen Young's other human puppets, a bunch of them have a similar design with a fixed expression, almost as though they're squinting or laughing, and it really makes you appreciate how much the performer brings to adding life to a puppet. So even though these characters were built by Noreen Young, she didn't actually perform them on today's special. Sam was performed by actor Bob Dermer, who is also the voice of Grumpy Bear in the Care Bears franchise, aka the only cartoon character that gets me, and Muffy was performed by Nina Keogh, who is like Canadian puppeteering royalty. Nina Keogh is a third-generation puppeteer who worked on almost all of the shows featured in this exhibit. She started work on The Friendly Giant. She was one of the original hosts on Polka Dot Door, which by proxy means she was probably Pokeroo at one point. If you know, you know.
The Pokeroo was here, and I missed him again?
And, of course, she was the puppeteer and voice of Muffy the Mouse.
How can stars be at their best if no one gives them time to rest?
Like Noreen Young, Nina's also a puppet builder, and she created Mrs. Pennypacker. Mrs. Pennypacker is a character that showed up about midway through the series in 1984, and she's the store's stockroom lady. This puppet was built by sculpting reticulated foam, which I believe is the same material you might find in the lining inside, say, a Halloween mask or inside of a speaker. And knowing that Nina was the designer behind this puppet makes a ton of sense when you consider that Nina also created the puppets for Bookmice. Bookmice aired a few years after today's special, and it was this adorable show about mice living in the walls of a library, and eventually they befriend a cat, they teach him how to read, and then he picks the name Exit because exit is the first word he learns how to read. It's so adorable. And anyway, those puppets are all here on display as well. So I'm not an expert, but I am fairly certain that these mice are also made of reticulated foam, and also I have no idea what Exit the cat is made out of. I'm just astounded that he's this big. I never realized Exit the cat would be this big, and I want to hug him. I'm not going to, but I want to. But this exhibit doesn't end with puppets. They have some really cool merchandise and artifacts on display. Now, I can't say I had any of these puzzles or magazines, but I absolutely had these Polka Dot Door VHS tapes. And speaking of VHS tapes, I had the first 3 volumes of this Today's Special collection. So there were a few years when Today's Special wasn't airing regularly, and so for a while, these tapes were my only way of watching the show before they started regular reruns on, I think, TVO Kids in the mid-90s. Now over here they have some incredible behind-the-scenes artifacts like these Polaroid photos from on set, and this wine bottle, which was apparently a wrap party gift that Bob Dermer gave to everyone when the show finished. So if you read the label, this is the bottle that was gifted to Nina. It says, "Dear Nina, thank you, we couldn't have done it without you. Love, Bobby Dermer." Dated November 13th, 1986. This bottle is older than me. Oh, and over here, this is one of the hand-painted animation cells from the opening title sequence, just showing all 4 main characters. I mean, like all Disney fans, I'm a sucker for a hand-painted animation cell. This is beautiful. And there we go. That was the exhibit. So I'm probably going to do a lot of voiceover. You probably heard a lot of voiceover while I was in there because, like, it is a small space and I didn't want to disrupt other people while they were trying to enjoy, but oh my gosh. I mean, I think I had slightly lowered expectations just knowing that it was in fact only one room, but there was so much in there. If you take in absolutely everything that they have, read into the history, and also enjoy the puppet making, station, which, let me just say, in true Matt Teacup form, I was the only person taking advantage of the puppet making station. You could spend well over an hour to an hour and a half in there, and the time just flies by. It was so cool. But anyway, as I jaywalk right now, imagine if this was my last moment caught on film before a car got me for jaywalking. Anyway, now that we've seen the puppets, I think we need to go see the store. Today's special was predominantly shot in a studio, like all the key locations, like the children's department, Sam's office, etc., etc. But the exteriors, like in the opening sequence, as well any time incidentally that they had to go outside of the store, those were all shot on location here on Queen Street West in Toronto at what was then called the Simpsons department store. Maybe it was the Robert Simpson department store, something involving the word Simpsons and department store. Now, that building still exists today. It's undergone a lot of changes of ownership over the years. So, you know, very little on the outside looks the way that it did in today's special. And I don't go in the store very often, but I'm almost positive the inside looks even more unrecognizable from what we saw in the series. But you know what? Let's just go visit it anyway. Aw. Thank you, street post sign. You're amazing. This street that we're walking down was actually featured in an episode of today's special. It's when we get the backstory to Muffy the mouse and how she came to live in the department store. But basically, her old home was bulldozed and then she sets out on her little mouse scooter. It is adorable. But there's one shot when she's looking for a new place to live. She's like scootering down the streets of Toronto and you can kind of see a fountain in the background. It's very likely that's that fountain. And it makes geographical sense because that was right before she found the department store, and the department store is literally like a block in front of me. A ton of the city is under construction right now, so it's going to be really hard to get the view, but if you kind of see right there, the white part of the building, right down there, there is a set of doors, which I am almost positive is the main entranceway that's depicted both in the opening sequence of today's special as well as that episode Our Story when we see Jodie run out of the department store to catch the streetcar. Like, she caught the streetcar pretty well right there. Like, I think it was that streetcar shelter or that bus shelter. And behold, mannequins. Can you imagine how terrifying it would be if we had like a Today's Special reboot and those were the mannequins that came to life? Jeff? Where are his eyes?
Today's special!
Today's special is fear.
Okay, I just found something really exciting, and I didn't know if this was still going to be here, but it in fact is. Behold, the plaque.
I found the plaque!
So this is a plaque that's explaining the history behind this beautiful building. It was built by Robert Simpson in the 1800s. The original building burnt down, but then it was rebuilt in 1896. And it was the first fireproof store in Canada. And now the reason that that plaque is so exciting is because it is kind of indirectly like a piece of history that relates not only to this building for obvious reasons, but also to today's special. Because in that episode that I keep referencing, Our Story Parts 1 and Part 2, the whole conflict in that episode is that the department store is going to get torn down unless they could find the plaque that indicated the age of the building, in which case they could show it to like City Hall or the city planners and then have it designated as a historic site so that it would be protected. Well, that ends up happening. They actually find the plaque in Muffy Mouse's apartment and it all works out. It's a little less detailed than the plaque that's actually here. It just says the name Robert Simpson as well as a year, but it is still a cool little piece of history that connects the actual building to today's special. Now, I do want to take this moment to give a giant shout out and a big thank you to Ben Schumann. Ben Schumann is somebody who runs this amazing Today's Special fan website, which I will link in the video description down below. But that website is like a one-stop shop for all things Today's Special. It has a comprehensive episode guide, and there's also an entire page dedicated to this building right behind me. So that is how I was able to know that that plaque was there, and it also maps out different spots within the department store that were used in the series. Now, granted, that entry was done probably 15 to 20 years ago, so as I said, there has been a lot of remodeling done, but nonetheless, I'm gonna go in the store, see if there's anything I recognize. All right, friends, there you have it. Our tour of the puppets and the building that made today's special a quintessential childhood classic for Canadians and non-Canadians alike. And with that, friends, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. Now let me know in the comment section down below, what is your favorite episode of today's special? And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see me do other things pertaining to Canada, Disney, Shakespeare, cats, and the like. Anyway, my name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's been the Teacup for One. How do you end this?